is that we need to be careful about what we listen to and about how we let what we listen to control us. Because I believe today, Tatiana, that there is some music that the child of God should not listen to. And that there is some music that the child of God, Sharita, should not dance to. Now, when I speak of dance, I do not speak merely about whatever the latest dance craze might be or might have been in your day. I'm not talking about the hustle, the rock, the bump, the waltz, the Cupid shuffle, the Superman, the jerk, the crank that Batman. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, when I refer about dance, I'm talking about allowing music and its lyrics to control us and call us into a being, a state of being that is unlike what God has called us to. Yes. Music has controlling power. And music can lead us to some stuff and to some situations that can sometimes be adverse to what God has called us to. We ought to love music, but we better be careful about loving any kind of music just because it's grooving, because music has power to control us, to influence us, and to cause for our lives to live either in a way or an opposite of a way that is the way and the will of God. And I want us, Michelle, to leave church today empowered and equipped to be able to stand and declare that we will not dance to any kind of music. Now, Protege, in order for you and I to understand the premise from which I preach today, I need for all of us to turn to our text for this day. The Old Testament book of Daniel, chapter number 3. In the 3rd chapter of Daniel, Job, beginning in verse number 1, we find for what for many of us is a familiar scriptural moment. But as familiar as it may be, it yet holds for us, Deron, a fresh truth. Truth that if listened to, if learned from, and if lived by, you and I will be able to honor the Lord more faithfully. We've been called first to listen. Everybody say listen. We've been called second to learn. Everybody say learn. And then we are being called to live. Everybody say live. If we listen to, learn from, and live by the truth that we hear, our lives shall honor God all the more. In the text, King Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon, built an image of gold that was 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. Miss Ruth, and he set it up, Carol McClyde, on the plain of Dora in the province of Babylon. Once this image, this idol, was built, completed, and set up, Nebuchadnezzar called together all of the leaders and the officials of Babylon and assembled them together for the dedication of this golden idol. And in verse number 5 of chapter 3, they were told, as soon as you hear the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And according to verse number 6, anyone who did not bow down and worship the image at the sound of the music would be cast down into a blazing fire. King Nebuchadnezzar shrewdly and manipulatively, Trinace, used music as the means and the tool to call the people to bow down and worship this man-made image as God, small g. Music, Mark, was the tool that Nebuchadnezzar used to get the people to dance to a different beat and deny who they were, whose they were, and what they were being called to be. He said, when you hear the music, dance. And your dancing will symbolize, your bowing will signify that you recognize this man-made image as God, small g. Nebuchadnezzar wanted to influence the people of his day in such a way that they would leave the God that they knew and loved and served and turn their heart and affection toward another God, which was really no God at all. And Tanisha, according to verse number 7, Celeste, just as had been decreed, the music played and all the people bowed down. All the people saw them except for 3 men. Look at verse number 8. Verse 8 says that some astrologers came to Nebuchadnezzar and they said to him, beginning at verse number 10, you issue a decree, O king, that at the sound of the music everyone must bow down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not will be thrown into a burning blaze. But verse 12, but there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, and they neither serve your God nor worship the image that you have set up. King Nebuchadnezzar demonically devised a plot and plan to use music as the instrument and the impetus to cause for people to bow down and worship the false god, small g, that he had built. And all the people who heard the music, when they heard it, they bowed down and they danced. All the people except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, Simone and Brittany and Brianna, as important as it is today for us to know about these 3 men, it is equally important that we understand that these names of these 3 men were not their original names. We know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, sometimes called a bad Negro. But these names were really their slave names. Their birth names were given in Daniel chapter 1, verses 6, 7, and 8. The names given by their parents were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. These 3 men, along with Daniel, for whom this book is named, along with countless others, were stolen from Judah and brought to Babylon to be slaves. Upon being brought to Babylon, their names were changed in an attempt to erase their memory and to change their identity. The slave owners changed their names flow to erase the memory of where they had come from and to attempt to change their identity. But these 3 men with these new names still remember the same old God. Their names were changed, but they still remembered and they honored the true and living God, Big G. And it's important that we know that because someone has said, if people can tell you who you are, then you will spend your life living to be what they tell you. Can I say it again? If people can tell you who you are, then you will spend your life living to be what they tell you. That's why you and I have to be careful about who we let tell us who we are. Tommy, I gotta ask you, Sherry, I gotta ask you, Devon, who or what defines us? Who or what do we let give us the understanding of what it means to be a man, a woman, or even a boy or girl? Who is it that we allow and permit to define us? Because whoever we let define us, that's what we'll spend our lives trying to live to become. Whoever or whatever we let define us becomes what we will spend our lives living towards. That's why it's so important and essential that we develop an understanding of who we are, not based on what anybody says, except for what